Welcome back. I wanted to show you the next uh, bit of controls. Let's take a look. I grabbed some of the Telerik demos. This one's a pretty good one. This is input controls. So again, without all the fluff with the rest of the screen, the headers and so forth, I've got a control. I did leave the skin control. So if you wanted to change the skin to fit your needs, anyway. So on my registration form, name, age, phone, email, hire date. Name is pretty much a free form control, so I can just give a name. Age, it's expecting a numeric value, right? So if I type an alpha in, you notice that it stops me on the client side from typing it in. I get this little message over here. So it's expecting, say, the only negative with this, and it's just stopping letters. It's not stopping 3 million. So let's say 11. Phone number, it's stopping me again from alphas, and it will format the phone number in the format that a phone number should be. Let's say, let's try again. 02 555 1212. Looks like there might be a little bit of a bug in their code, but it's all good. Email address, you'll see what that looks like. If I post back, which means check the errors, it will actually come back and say this isn't a valid email address. Test at Verizon.net. That'll pass the valid email address. Hire date. Again, if I said something that wasn't a date, it'll take only a date. Email address and password. You notice the password, the good old stars for password. Email, again, it's going to look for a valid email address. Now you notice the difference between this email and this email validation. As I tab out, it's enforcing the validation as I tab out. So it reminds me of one of those Ajax updates or Ajax validations. If I hit the reset button, resets all the controls, and this toggles whether the client-side validations are going to be enforced. In other words, let's see what happens now. Client-side tells me that, well, maybe it's not working. Client-side tells me that it should be only enforcing on client-side, but it looks like it still had a couple of those left over. How do these validations work? Like, how in the world can you validate you have a valid email address? The numbers and the letters are pretty much easy, but this one's a little trickier. Let's take a look at the code. And let's see. A masked text box. That's what this is, a masked text box. Right underneath of that, I have email. So red text box 2 happens to be email. Now I've got a couple of validators here. One is a required validator. So simple. A required validator says that it's tied to a given control, which is staring me in the face. Control to validate. There you go. So this is tied to this control. The error message is going to show, and the required field validator, there's no conditions. It has to be required. So if you entered a blank, it would stop you and force you to enter a value. This one's a little trickier. The regular expressions validator. I'm going to blow up the screen a little bit to see, so we can all see what this is doing. The regular expression validator, again, it's tied to a control. That's right somewhere around here. Control to validate. There we go. We'll talk about validation groups in a bit in CSS. The validation expression. That's the regular expression for email. So an email is looking for a number of characters, an @ sign, and then a number of characters, and then a number of set characters. So regular expressions, what it does is it matches the text that you have against the regular expression for the value of the regular expression in validation expression. And then if it doesn't pass, it won't. It's a true or false. It'll resolve down to a true or false. If it's false, you'll get the message The message in this case is please enter a valid email address. If it passes, it'll pass. Now, the drawback is it just has to pass the syntax of a valid email address. It doesn't actually check to see if it is in true a valid email address. So if you I don't know, send an email to George Washington at thewhitehouse.com, it will probably pass this validation, but is probably not going to be answered by George Washington at the White House. Let's take a look at some of the other ones. Go back. Hire date. How did that one work out? Hire date was a date input. Okay. It's looking for date format D, which means it's a month, day, year. The max date, there's a min date. So even though, let's say, 01/01/1800 is a valid date, it doesn't meet this validation because it has a minimum date of 1990. So if I said 01/01/1989, it's no good. If I said 01/01/1990, it is good. Cool. Validation group again. The max date. What the validation group, I punted over that twice. Let's say you had a number of validations that you needed to fire on your form, and they were logically grouped. In other words, a certain set of you had 3 validations, and you needed to make sure that the validation 1 was fired and acted upon without showing any failures from 2 and 3. And then if 1 was good, it'll show validation 2 and not 3, and wait for 2 to be completely validated and then 3. So if I want to sort of logically group, it makes no sense in showing somebody 500 things that have to change if they fixed. In other words, there's a hierarchy of what has to be validated first and next and last. The group is up to you. Another thing you do with group is you don't have to have your validation messages tied to the control itself. What you can do is have validation. Let's say at the bottom of this form here, I drew a list box, and I wanted all my validations to spill into this list box like a bolded list. Let's say there was 100 things that could go wrong. You don't want to mark up your whole form with that. You want to down here, right? That makes sense. Pretty cool stuff. This is typical. I mean, a typical use of a form like this, I'd probably have an object data source that was going to fill. Let's say it was I was going to show users' current information. I pick a user. I have each one of these bound to the data field in question. I just do a data bind, which will bind the value to the control, and then show the form. And then post back would be probably update. Reset would be what reset is, but clear, or clear back to the previous state. Not much to it. One of the other minor changes I might want to do, let's say for hire date, instead of having the date like that, I might want to do something a little different. I might have, let's stop this for a second. I might go to my toolbox to see what kind of controls I have for date. I'm pretty sure I have a red date control. Let's see what that is. This is, I love these controls, but they're sort of all over the place. Of course, I'm blind and can't see it, but trust me, there's a red date control. So it's either that or it's called red calendar control. What that allows you to do is have a calendar. Let's see what that looks like. The date was here. I'm going to put it, bring that toolbox up again. Red calendar right here. Okay. I'm going to do my control KD to format again. And it's running. So instead of giving the user the ability to click into a field and type value in, it takes a second for it to load the first time. I'll give them a calendar. They pick that. This might even be a drop-down calendar. A lot of times I've seen them. It's, let's say, imagine you have this text box, and then over here you have a tiny little icon for a counter, and if they click that, they get this. They can pick a week. They can pick. I mean, there's 1,000 different ways. This control is pretty easy to use, and not much to put on your form. All the I take that back. Control Z. All the different options. Again, you probably have min and max date, range min and range min date, range max date, and literally 100, 1,000 different options that you could use for your calendar control. Um, Gee, what else? For you know what, that's enough for now. This is a good start. How to use the basic controls, and the other thing was I want you to see how this was. Let's see. I tab out. I want you to look not on this. I'm not going to show you on this video, but look to see how that Ajax happened with this password. How that got lit. Um, Interesting stuff. All right, I'm going to close this. This one is called InputControls, and again, I'm not going to do anything else with this. The next video is going to be another form. Thank you.